Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Josh Foreman. I'm a Crafty Creative. I make all sorts of things. I work on these books. I make these books. You should buy them. They're on Amazon.com. The Scarred King series. All my what is it? Socials up above. You can see them there. Let's get to work. We got a lot of ground to cover today. So, what is this? What is this, you may be asking? This is shelf paper stuff that's, comes in squares. And I'm doing this little area over here where dice are going to be rolling down these stairs, coming out into this little area. And that area seemed to me kind of like a wading pool looking thing. So I figured, tiles makes sense. So I'm currently working on making them kind of match the ruined aesthetic of the other tiles. These larger ones. And to do that, I'm just cutting the grid, as you can see here. So I blocked out with my Sharpie where I wanted tiles to kind of be flaked away. And I did not glue this down all over. I did a couple little kind of spot welds with some hot glue. Just enough so that it'll stay in place, but I can also peel away the parts of the tiles that I want to be cracking off. So how's everyone doing today? Talk to me, y'all. I don't want to be alone here. So alone. Say hi. Tell me what you like. What do you work on? What do you do? What's your favorite thing? What's your least favorite thing? Unless your least favorite thing is cutting tiny square tiles. In which case, don't tell me that. That's just gonna lower my morale, Then my I won't be able to activate my berserker attack when needed if my morale is too low. See, I want to keep a bunch of these tiles around so that I can, after I get the painting done and stuff, I want to scatter around the little bits that have been knocked off and such. Rose Yeti, thank you so much for the resub for 20 months. Nice. Super busy with actual work. What? Have you tried explaining to them that your real passion is something different? It's minis and wargaming terrain and stuff. That's your real passion. And they should be paying you to do that. I mean, maybe if you just explained it to them in simple terms, they'd be cool with it. Lurking while working, yeah. That's the life. I certainly do my fair share of that as well. Trying to decide at one point. I'm happy to have the crack actually like cross over tiles without actually removing the tiles underneath. And of course we don't want every tile to be flaked off perfectly in a square. There will be some tiles that have cracked. You know, their mortar wasn't as strong on one corner or another, and so it can flake off in interesting ways. I kind of start with the broad strokes and then I come in and start doing this more detailed flaking. Yeah, construction company. A lot of transferable skills there, I can see that. Can you claim terrain making as a continuing education credit? I'm so tempted to do all sorts of other kind of disruptions to the surface, but I'm keeping it minimal because this is theoretically where the dice are supposed to end up, and they need to be laying flat, right? I can't put a bunch of big chunks carved out and stuff, because then you're going to get dice laying on their sides and other catastrophes. So with like contract fulfillment, I guess you would be more on the end of filling out the character sheets and such. that's how you claim that tabletop gaming is actually what you should be doing full time. What they should be paying you to do. So I think I'm trying to decide if I want to pull up this entire patch right here. I think it's fine. My only hesitancy has to do with leaving blank spots, but I have to remind myself it's not going to be blank. It's going to have little, like a sandy grout sort of surface down there. Okay, so this area was glued down a little bit. Wow, that does not want to just peel away like I was hoping it would. Oh. Doesn't have to peel away 100%. It's fine to have a little bit of gunk down there for the grout to cover, and it'll just give it a little bit of dimensionality. Also, when tile pulls away from grout, there's quite often sort of the little impression of the tiles on chunks of grout that are left behind. So again, happy to just kind of roll with it. Pun intended, because we are talking about where dice are going to be rolling. Correct. Let's see if I can get this right. AK Tanglebane. Is it AK Tanglebane or AK Tanglebane? My only concern is that it's going to look like some of, if these are close enough to the height of the other tiles, then it's going to look like there's this weird row of like oddly shaped tiles. You don't do tabletop, you just paint. Okay, wow, well, we'll figure out a way. We'll figure out a way to get them to pay you to do your hobby. It's just a matter of time. Almost done with our tile cutting here. This has been a little dry, A little bland so far, but don't worry, we're going to get to some bigger scale stuff here in a moment. Probably want to come back in and make some adjustments after I get the base coat down and have a better idea of the composition. You know, when everything is kind of white on white, hard to read. Some more hot glue down here. Certainly could have planned better as far as where I was going to put my cracks first, and then made sure that the hot glue was not under any of those spots. Acta. All right. Cool, okay, now we are ready to start doing some base painting kind of things. Let's get old Mossbeard out of the way. I was painting him on last night's stream and having a grand old time. This guy's really fun. I love all the little fringy edges to highlight. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and do black Mod Podge coat on this base. Look at this. I already had gloves out for myself. How thoughtful of past Josh. Thanks, past Josh. Yeah, Mossbeard is super cool. So I think I'm gonna grab one of my square-ish brushes here. Not square, not square. Nope. Sometimes I like to play this game where I hide my favorite brushes from myself to make things a little more challenging, you know. There we go. All right, because I'm going to be doing some color differentiation on this guy. And this is not a particularly large surface, so it's no problem to use this bit of a smaller brush on it. And pushing the Mod Podge, which also acts as a glue, under the edges to make sure that those are not going to peel up with use. In fact, I could probably save myself time by just globbing it on in those areas. Now, if I was really brave, I could actually go in at this point and sprinkle in the grout where the tiles have peeled away, but I'm not that brave. I'm going to wait until this dries, and then I will paint down glued just in the very specific areas where I want it. I mean, there is going to be some grout spilling over the edges, but I would rather have that in a more controlled method. Bit of a control freak in that way, I guess you could say. Sometimes I challenge myself to embrace the chaos of a particular technique or order of operations, and sometimes I get happy accidents with that, and then sometimes I get sad accidents. I think it's kind of a investment strategy, right? Like, the more you throw unproven things at the wall, usually it's going to take your project a little bit longer, but as an investment, often those tests will yield time-saving things that you can apply to your next project. So depending on how much time I've got on any given project, I'll do more or less experimentation. My heuristic seems to be dependent on how much time I have on the project. How much time I've spent on the project is another big part of the equation, because at some point, you know, you have a limited amount of momentum on any given thing, and it's like just like psychological momentum, and you pay a price for slowing things down. Grout is Groot's weird uncle. Yeah, I could see that. Not sure a creature made out of grout would be very effective, though. Past Quindy sabotages you. You know, I have not done a calculation, but I'm willing to guess that past Josh sabotages me more often than he surprises me with nice things. Now, I really don't need this coat to be very thick, because this material is plastic, rubber, something like that, shelf paper. Like, it's designed to hold up to having like silverware and tools and stuff clattered over it all the time. So I have no fear that the dice are gonna damage this part. I just really need the black for the cracks. And for those of you, let's see, who weren't here previously, in case this isn't clear, what's going on here is that this little funny looking tile thing goes here, right? And then it's like the little waiting pool where the dice fall and they roll down the stairs. Here for now. Here's an interesting thing that I've been experimenting with. I found these on Amazon. These are made for cake decorators for fondant. But I figured, you know, they're kind of, they've got stuff that would work for terrain tiles and stuff. There's a whole pack of them with a variety of square and diamond shapes and scales. And the stuff I packed into it is this. Black Magic Air Dry Moldable Cosplay Foam Clay by the Foam Factory. It's interesting stuff. It is air dry, and it does act just like what is the name of that material that they use for cosplay all the time? It's EVA foam, I believe. Yeah, it's essentially a sculptable version of that. Now, I may have put it on too thin. When it goes on too thick, it takes a long time to dry all the way to the bottom. So, yeah, I'm not having the best luck here. Like I said, this was an experiment, and I figure I might as well share it with you guys. Valander the Red, good afternoon to you. There we go. All right. So, yeah, I mean, one of the really cool things about this is because it's like now a flexible sheet, I could wrap it around things. Assuming, you know, you have a pillar type thing, you can have a pillar with that pattern on it, which, and because it is this kind of material, you can go into it and do all sorts of edits. Now, it's not as nice as carving into extruded foam like this, because, you know, it's rubbery, right? But it's interesting, and I'm sure it's going to have some kind of application for something. How could it not? There are also these little textures that also came with the set. A lot of them were a little too cartoony for my taste, but some of them felt like they could be pretty realistic wargaming or diorama tiles. Oh yeah, look at that. That is pretty darn cool. I'm gonna do a dry brush over this since I'm gonna have the dryer paints out anyway, and see what that ends up looking like. I think it's gonna be pretty great. .3D printed foam and added this stuff to make a mountain pattern scale based on ancient Chinese statues of armored warriors. Oh, that sounds very cool. Yeah, these are like very stylized. But again, you know, maybe with the right painting, it comes out really nice. It definitely got me thinking along the lines of, man, it'd be really cool to just make myself a set of custom texture stamp type things, and maybe even cast my own like sheets. Like, can you imagine getting a nice flexible sheet of material that, I don't know, is like 12 by 12, or, you know, that you could just wrap around anything? That sounds super useful. All right. Let's start applying some modulation. So this base has had the full black Mod Podge coat applied to it, and then a neutral gray applied over everything yet again. Vandalar, yeah, filling the gaps with sand, mortar of some kind is totally a thing I want to try. And so now what I want to do is add the variant colors of stone, which I picked out on a previous stream. So I took this giant gray batch that I made. It's in a huge like quart jug, and mixed up 4 variant colors of it. I've experimented with doing the thing where you like have a where you just put the colors on raw, like a bright blue and yellow and stuff like that, but I find that I have to dry brush it back so much that I don't know, it doesn't work as well to me as just having tints of this color. I'm just gonna use one of my scrap pieces of foam I cut for brown, our old yeller. This one I have not named. It's Joker's Wild on this one. I'm guessing that's like based on all the residue around here, it's more of a like canary lemon yellow mixed into it, and this one was more of a like ochre type of yellow. This is clearly got some tealy blue in there. Show what container? The flexible foam stuff? I think that's the only container I showed. And how about even in focus, huh? And so I still have my black Mod Podge on this brush, and I'm just going to use that as an opportunity to pick out some of these bricks to be much darker than the others. And I fight my impulse to never put 2 of the same variant next to each other, because when I look at my reference, that's something you see a lot. You see the same variant of rock right next to each other, and that's okay, and I just need to be okay with it. Embrace the chaos. In fact, I'm gonna do myself one better and put 3 next to each other like a madman. Also, there are lots of times where a rock has color variation within itself, right? So I want to make sure I'm doing that. One thing that I rarely do is go across like a pattern like this across multiple blocks, because the only way that happens is if something was spilled and stained that area, which is fine to have that, but if it's like covers an entire area, then it's like I don't know what the environmental storytelling excuse for that would be, or reasoning. Shouldn't use the word excuse. That's too value-lated. No problem, Acta. Glad to provide therapy to you, Silver Lady. I'm certainly no expert at painting, but I usually get the result I'm going for, more or less. The darn internet has done a great job of disabusing many of us artists of how great we are, because you just see so many incredible artists out there doing things, and jaw is always dropping every day. Scrolling Instagram, going through YouTube tutorials, whatever it is, it's just like, wow. Wow. Alright. Probably have enough of the black off my brush. And honestly, mixing any random color in with these is completely acceptable as well. So it's not like I needed to get the black off. I just was like, oh, I've got black on there, and I know I'm going to want some of the blocks to be darker, so why not roll with it? Ideally, I would have a brush that is exactly the width of these tiles, so I could just do it in 1 or 2 strokes on each tile. I've been doing so many of this size tile for this particular diorama that I don't have an excuse for not having just like bought a 3/4 inch brush. The excuse is that every time I think of it, I'm like right in the middle of things. I don't want to stop and like go on Amazon or run to the craft store or whatever, right? Hey, Planar Crossroads, how's it going? Welcome. I go through all the trouble of moving the camera, and then I immediately go and paint off camera. How do you like those pro skills? Oh, that's not what I was using. Yes. This is my, I believe, Old Yeller. Looks like it might actually have a little bit of green in it too. A little bit of sickly green. Probably in a rock that would be the result of olivite. Which geologist non-creatively named mineral that is olivey green in color. Usually. Things get complicated with chemistry and geology because you very rarely get a pure mineral rock. It's almost always a composition of many different minerals. And I'm gonna have to decide that some of these rocks that make up the more architecturally significant parts should also have some of these tints on them. Not really concerned with getting total coverage, again, taking into account that as the minerals swirl around when rocks are being formed, you're going to get parts of rocks that are one color and parts that are another. It's kind of a oversimplification to just do an entire, block one color. But it's a different kind of oversimplification to just like add blobs of color that cross multiple placed rocks. With a ashlar construction, which is where you cut stones specifically to shape and put them down, right? Generally, they're trying to vary the hue of the rocks, so that you don't end up with a giant patch of like red over here and yellowish over there and whatever. Yeah, so that was one piece that got broken when this pillar fell over. So that will get that color applied. Just put that over there for now. Let's see. We'll save the other ones for different color. trying to think if I want to do an entire slab, one of the, you know what, yeah, let's go for it. So this is my front right pillar I have noted here. And because this is ostensibly a different block cut from a different place of the quarry and placed on top, it's going to have slightly different color cast to it. I'm being pretty slapdash with this, and purposely so that I get some variation. As long as it doesn't literally look like, you know, a paintbrush has dragged a stroke along the surface, I'm happy with whatever sort of irregularities result from this. Especially after you get the weathering on and the dry brushing, etc., etc. It all turns out pretty well in the end. These pieces I made by using a hot wire poker thing to make a gouge a hole, and then I glued these guys into the hole facing outward. And I currently, you see a bunch of like glob of hot glue and stuff in there, so I'm gonna have to go in with a black and just like blot out those places where it looks less convincing to me. How long have I been painting for? Good question. I mean, kind of all my life. Painting like specifically miniatures and stuff. Boy, well, it depends. Like, I paint my own sculptures and stuff, right? So, like, I've been doing this kind of painting for years, where I sculpt this thing from scratch, and then I paint it to look the way I want. Um, it's only fairly recently that I've been trying to get into more like wargaming terrain and dioramas and stuff like that. So it's funny, like you would think 100% of the skills would just automatically transfer, but it turns out they don't. It still requires a learning curve for every different application, shockingly. There's a lot that transfers over, but not as much as you would think. Like there are fundamental artistic rules that have to do with composition, readability, and stuff like that. But it's still interesting that they get applied very differently. Like the last couple of years, I've also been figuring out map making, making fantasy maps, because I've been working um, on these novels, and I want to put like awesome, they're full of regular illustrations, which I'm already, I've been illustrating forever, so that's not a problem. But then when it came to like doing the fantasy maps, I found, again, I waltzed into it thinking, oh, this should be no problem. I've been doing art forever. And then all these original problem solving things that you just have to learn as you get into it kept popping up. The hardest thing for me with fantasy maps is like finding that line between readability and the like desire to make it a fully like an illustration, you know what I mean? And there are some artists who pull that off brilliantly, and they are the best of the best. And so that's why it took me years to get to the point where I'm like, okay, my maps are good enough to publish now. Even though I've been doing art professionally for 30 years. um, yeah, amazing. Amazing how complicated things can be. Oh, don't worry about it. That book is my uh, what's it called? Like when you order a sample before you get the final ones. So it's my kind of garbage studio book. Proof. It's called a proof. Thank you, Brain, for giving me that 15 seconds later. Appreciate it. Alright, let's put this over here and pop over to the sky, which you'd think is the same color, but no, it is slightly different. I'm not really doing a lot of work on this back portion because this is not going to be seen by almost anyone ever, so just kind of phoning it in over there. It occurs to me that we really need to update that phrase, because phoning it in is kind of like using the phone is now a bigger deal than texting. Like it's very unusual to just like call someone. So the phrase should probably be more like texting it in, or emojiing it in, thumbs upping it in. Like, what's the laziest way you can do a thing and just not really think about it? Yeah, I gotta remember to do some variants where it's like only part of it is that color, not all of it. And also variant of a variant, also good to have. You know what I did do that I forgot about? I got a bunch of sponges, specifically. Well, I got these for oil painting minis, but I had other sponges earlier, and I don't know where they are. But it just occurred to me I could probably cut this to a tile stamp size pretty easily. What is that? Wow, Wilder Man 81. Hiya. I'm working on the base of a dice tower, a very large dice tower. The The actual, like, tower is that right there. Um, it's going to have all these interesting features on it, going up it, and then these like wing arm things coming off like that, where you'll put the dice and it's going to roll down, fall down to the bottom, and the base is what I'm working on right now. So the dice are going to come down through there and roll out into here. Okay. So I cut it a little bit on the conservative side as far as coverage, just because I'd rather have to dab it twice than get it where I don't want it. I feel like I remember I tried this before and I gotta say, that's pretty nice. I think I may have overloaded it last time I tried this, or maybe it was a different kind of brush that, or different kind of sponge that just kind of like squished it out where I didn't want it too often. But this seems to be getting the job done pretty well. It has a little harder time if there's a lot of texture on it. But again, due to the natural variability of rock, I don't see that as particularly problematic. I have to learn a kind of a better loading strategy. So right now I'm like doing this and it takes a long time for each one, right? But if I dip it in the big stuff and then do one scrape, you know, something along those lines. Yeah. I'm liking this. Yeah, it is a stupidly large dice tower. The only reason that it is so large is because it's actually being made for, I mean, the tower I was making anyway for a huge diorama. It's almost this, well, it is the size of a small bathroom, really. It's 6 feet wide by 8 feet long by 6 feet tall, because I'm making a big diorama for my Colossus that I sculpted from the game Shadow of the Colossus. And I want to do just a really cool photo and video shoot. So I want it to be in the actual environment from the game, which is kind of a big underground arena dungeon kind of thing. And I figure, you know, I'm making a giant tower. Why not make it a dice tower? A very impractical dice tower that no one will want to play with more than once, because who wants to get up, like stand up and walk over to a giant device every time you need to roll your dice? That'd be super annoying. Or maybe if you're doing like cardio D&D or something. I just invented that, by the way. Copyright, trademark, Josh Foreman, 2021. No, I'm just kidding. You could steal that idea if you want. Oh, and I just realized I forgot to put some of my color variants on my little gate. My little gate guys are going to be like so. So that diorama is not going to be stored. It's going to be, what's it called when you recycle, but you still use the parts? Upcycling? Something like that. Basically, I built a frame for it, and it's on my back porch. It barely fits on my back porch. And, the wooden frame part, I'm just going to dismantle. But I'm making everything fairly modular so that I'll be able to take the wall and, well, it's going to be several wall segments, several floor segments, even some of the ceiling, and repurpose it. Probably decorate the back of my studio, because, like, I already have, like, you can see, so that rock tower mountain thing is also part of the dungeon. But, like, I have that kind of background, and so I figure I can cover most of it with the kind of carved ruin walls that I'm going to have for the diorama. That's my plan. We'll see. Give me a shout out in the credits. God, I'm trying to imagine how cardio D&D is going to work. I mean, it could be along the lines of, I have that Nintendo Switch fitness game, Ring Fit Adventure, which is very much a role-playing game. But, all your attacks and stuff are different workout things you do with the ring. It's pretty fun. And I'm just now remembering that I haven't used it in months for some reason. So obviously it can't be that fun. I don't know. I'm definitely one of those people who prefers sitting still and eating sweet things to getting up and jumping all around. Unless it's outside on boulders. I love jumping around on boulders. Bouldering is the best. Every other kind of workout just kind of sucks. Yeah, I figure it's a good way to repurpose the diorama and not feel so bad about, dismembering it afterwards. I do YouTube art tutorials, and so having a cool arty background is a good investment for me. do a sort of fade swirl thing, or I'm gonna have it fairly light base. And less so as it goes up. Not to be confused with the dry brush and the wash and all the stuff it's going to get after this. Again, this is just thinking about base color layer, not weathering or other environmental effects. Okay, we're done with that color. Very good. Time for my blue boy. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take the brush or the stamp that I was using with the yellowish stuff and just mix it right on in. See there, I got some from one tile to the other, and I do not like that. Like, I'm totally cool if this tile has some of that blue, but I wouldn't want it leaking over from a blue tile next to it. I would want it to have blue on this side, just to reinforce that these are different paver blocks. I'm a little pedantic about that, I admit. It's so subtle, but I think like the way that the brain absorbs information, it still pays off in having a more convincing result in the end. Whether it's worth the amount of extra time you put into it, that's a value judgment you have to make based on a project-by-project basis, right? You know, do you spend another 5 hours on a piece of terrain to make it 2% more convincing? You know, depends on your needs. A flaming boulder. Wow, that would be rough. Chasing a bolting horse. Yeah, that'd be good. So like instead of strength or agility checks, essentially you actually make the players do a physical exerting thing. They literally have to do a cartwheel to pass their check, or like 20 push-ups or something. I could see this being a thing. I don't know how big of an overlap there is between the jocks and the nerds who, you know, not Venn diagram, but people who like D&D or other wargaming or tabletop gaming, and people who are crazy about fitness. How big an overlap market is there? It would at least be entertaining to watch. You know, there's a lot of gaming channels out there where it's just nerds sitting around a table playing. Like, why not have one where it's jocks sitting around a table being forced to do a bunch of zany exercises? My logic and facts don't care about your feelings. No, I'm all for this idea and think someone definitely needs to try it. Oh yeah. For some reason, LARPing completely skipped my mind, but there's lots of working out going on in LARPs. Forgot about that. My brother is a huge LARPer. He does at some point he was participating in, I want to say, like 3 or 4 simultaneously. Good idea. Get on that lawsuit. You should go out to the parks and campgrounds and just start serving them papers. That's right. Don't actually make anything. Just sue people for doing stuff that you own the rights to. This is sadly a real thing that exists. When I worked at ArenaNet, the building next to us was inhabited by patent trolls. An entire business predicated on suing people for doing things that someone else theoretically could claim had a patent for, but weren't actually doing anything with. What a life. Fine. Yeah, this also does the kind of fading from one corner or side out to another really well. Just the angle that I plop it down, I can get a variety of effects. Nice. Really like this. I can do it over other colors as well. I need to continually remind myself of this fact. I tend to get caught up in a pattern behavior and just stick with it no matter what, without stopping to question on a regular basis, why am I doing it this way? Is there a better way to do it? Should I switch to that better way? It's kind of a life skill that can be applied to all areas of your life. Why am I doing things the way I'm doing them? Would I be better served doing it a different way? Or at least experimenting with a different way for a bit. See what happens. Telemarketing and patent trolls in one business. That sounds fantastic. Trying to figure out a way if you could work landlording in there at the same time to just really get like a trifecta of evil. No offense to landlords. I love my landlord personally, but it is an industry not known for its up and upness. Okay. Oh yeah, let's not forget that we want to add tints to other parts as well. Ooh, actually, while my brush is almost dry, let's try dry brush on this stuff. Or in this case, a not very dry brush. Yeah, I feel like this has got a lot of promise. Why do I see no color appearing on there? Some more of this bluer stuff. I like the idea of two predatory businesses set up next to each other that are kind of like what is that called in nature when two creatures symbiotic, yeah, like an unhealthy symbiotic relationship where one business abuses people in a way that requires help and the other business provides that help. I guess it would be kind of like, it's not in the abusive way, but like having a dentist office right next to a candy store or something. Weight loss clinic right next to a Burger King. I'm sure that exists all over the place. Yeah, pilot fish and sharks. Those are so interesting. The ones that, like, literally have to do something where they could be killed in an instant if the creature that they're cleaning or feeding off of or whatever just decides to close its mouth. You're like, thanks for the help. By the way, you are dessert. There's those birds that pick the teeth of alligators, too. Yeah, wow, I'm really liking this. I think this is a lot of promise. Cool, cool. Okay. Back to my blue. Is this new? Oh, yes. This. I'm gonna double check that this is all from the same piece. How's this go? Like, yes, okay. Yes, okay. So, I want to make this blue. I need to make all three of these. One's blue. I feel like we could probably do one of these pillars in this blue as well. What is this? Front left. Okay, so that goes there. Yes. I already started putting this kind of yellowish on there. I just realized after I started applying the blue, but again, totally cool for these colors to kind of mix in together. Again, my general rule is as long as they don't mix across the blocks, mixing on the blocks, totally in bounds. The only exception to mixing across the blocks is with either black or like rusty reddy orange, because that's the kind of stuff where it's like iron that is dripping and being pulled out of the rock essentially, and then dripping down to rocks beneath it or around it if it's on the floor a bit. Those are the exceptions that I have made for myself. And we got one more color variant. I choose 4 as a fairly arbitrary number of variants. It really depends on what you're going for. When you look at reference of castles and ruins and stuff like that, there's a really big variety of variety, really. You know, some places were built like carved into a rock face, in which case they're pretty uniform coloring. Yeah, but even if you look at like a cliff, it usually has several different colors kind of merging together in places. But for the most part, it's uniform. And compared to a place that you know, it came from a quarry and then was collapsed, and then another building nearby was cannibalized for rocks, and then those rocks are used on parts of it, and then, you know, that repeats over a couple hundred years, and you get a bunch of different flavors going on. And so it just really depends on the history of your location that you're trying to communicate. You're telling some kind of story, whether you realize it or not. Environmental storytelling, as they call it in my video game industry. Apparently I own the video game industry. I don't know why I said it that way, but yeah, it's mine now. So if everyone making video games could please just send me a check anytime you make a video game, that'd be great. Oh, speaking of video games, for those of you who are into that sort of thing, I'm going to be on a panel for San Diego Comic-Con about storytelling in video games, where I'll probably be talking quite a bit about, you know, my specialty of environmental storytelling. So be on the lookout for that. Alright, I think with that fourth color down, the next step requires pretty much just waiting for this to dry. And next time we'll be tackling the weathering, probably the wash. I could never decide whether I go wash first and then dry brush, or dry brush and then wash. I usually end up doing both of those like twice. I have not quite mastered the formula, and maybe it's just that the formula requires going back and forth a couple times, and that's okay. I mean, doing the wash and the dry brushing are both really fun, so you know, I'm not complaining that I get to do those several times. So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. El Moderados, can you please queue up our raid? And I shall restate my pluggables. So I've got all my socials listed up above somewhere in that direction. Or maybe it's the other direction. I don't know. It's a direction. Oh, I know. It's this direction. Ah, there they are. I got a YouTube channel where I have a lot of tutorials on sculpting, mold making, terrain, dioramas, painting, etc., etc. I've got these books. Please give them a try if you're into fantasy adventure. They are very fun. They're very highly rated, thanks mostly to my co-author, Josh Foreman, who is an amazing author. I do the world building and visual development for it, and she makes you care about the characters somehow. It's amazing. Yeah. So that'll do it for me for today. I guess this just goes in the thing. All right, so I'm just gonna pop up my starting soon screen, which just pretend that it's a see you next time screen, and then we're gonna raid. All right, catch you guys later. Bye.